Welcome to the Minority Report. I'm your host, Beairshelle TT, and you're tuned into the program where we're talking about issues, accomplishments, and the lives of minorities. On this week's episode, we're continuing to dive into our programs with a continued focus on Black History Month. In this episode, we will speak with a panel of minority student leaders at a predominantly white institution to explore the issues they face and the leadership they must take to represent minority students and their concerns. Joined here with the esteemed panel of women today, all women, which is very different most times. So it's great to have a different type of minority, including races, here on the table. Thank you, ladies, for all joining. You all represent clubs of Alana, an organization on campus that works to service minority students, organizations, issues, kind of being the voice. So again, thank you for representing your organizations. I'm going to start by introducing all of you, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So first we have representing the Association of Latin American Students, Jordan and Joelle Hernandez, and we have Akua Frimpong representing the African Students Union, and we have Jen representing the Asian Culture Alliance. And we are missing the Black Students Association as well as NASA, which represents Native American students. But we have a great panel here. I think we can dive into the issue that we're talking about today and still get enough information. So why we're here today is talking about what leadership means on a predominantly white institution. As leaders, you guys experience different things, and we just want to come together and talk about how you deal with leadership being a minority student. So the first question I'll ask is, why do you represent the organizations that you do? What drives you to represent them?
I represent, as Shelley said before, the Association of Latin American and Spanish Students, and I do identify as being Hispanic. My father's side is from Puerto Rico, so I, of course, represent Association of Latin American and Spanish Students. And I feel as though I represent that. I am also Black, and I'm a member of the Black Student Association, but I felt a little bit more connected to ALAS just here at school. I chose to represent ALAS because it was more of a family-oriented group. The things that ALAS stands for, I of course stand for. Our mission statement is to promote awareness of Latin American and Spanish students here on campus, as well as get everyone acquainted with our culture a little bit more. And I felt as though that I had good leadership skills, and I was involved with ALAS last year, that I should be involved with this organization.
Okay. How about for you ladies over here?
I'm Filipino American. Both my parents came here from the Philippines in the 70s, and I'm very proud of it. I understand and speak the language, and I just, so the same thing, with ACA, we strive to spread all types of Asian cultures, spread awareness, teach and educate the culture and the Loyola community about our organization. And also we have a family as well. So I just, coming in freshman year, I felt very welcomed by all of them. And so I definitely wanted to stay and have a leadership position so that I could spread, my experience onto others.
How about for you, Akua?
Okay. Well, my father's from Ghana and my mom's from Jamaica. And for me, I didn't know so much about my heritage. So I felt like this would be a great opportunity to learn more of where I come from, to learn the different tribes in Africa. I mean, my dad's specifically from Ghana, but I learned more about Nigeria, Kenya, South Africa. I felt that there's a lot more that we need to know about Africa than just the stereotypical things that we hear. So I felt that it would be important to spread the word and, have more people know what Africa stands for, what else there is just besides, we hear more of like South Africa or the Western, but what about the Eastern side, the Northern side, and the Southern side? So I felt that there's some way I could connect, but I'm also learning at the same time.
Well, one thing that all of you happen to mention is having a feeling of being welcomed and coming into a family, but also a learning experience, even having been part of these cultures previous to coming to college or even in high school when you have cultural clubs like this. It's more than just I'm this race, so I've joined this club. So knowing that sometimes is a stigma, how do you guys deal with leading the clubs that have that stigma attached to them that say, you're this race, so you automatically join this club, and that's all the club is about. It's not about a learning experience for you personally. It's not about becoming a family. It's not about learning people who are like you. So how do you address that as leaders?
I feel like the events that we put on outside of our general body meetings really help to get others that don't identify with our heritage or our culture to come in and join our clubs and see how we work and kind of learn more about our culture and our heritage. For example, Association of Latin American Students hosted Latin Fest last semester, and I feel that a lot of students were attracted to that because it was a big event, because there was entertainment, but also because they wanted to learn a little bit more about the Hispanic culture.
And I know the same goes for your clubs as well, and I also forgot to mention the Caribbean Students Union. They also, every club has different events that try and draw out crowds other than their members. So how do you actually draw out crowds? And do you actually get students of the majority race to come to your events? Because you're not only seeking to teach your members, but the campus as well. So how does that work?
Definitely promotion is the biggest way to do it, word of mouth. And in this day and age, like through Facebook, Twitter, all emails, all of the technological, outlets that we have.
Even with the promo, do you feel that you actually get a group of students or a majority of students on campus who aren't Asian that come to your meetings or come to your events?
Yeah, we do. We just had a Chinese New Year event, and it was in the reading room, and pretty much the entire reading room was filled. So we were pleasantly surprised with the outcome, and I think it's because people wanted to learn about Chinese New Year, like what it is and what makes it different from like our, American New Year, I guess. And we also, something we did differently was like emailing professors to tell their students about it, or maybe saying like, go to this as a cultural event, just finding different ways to get the word out there and not making it just about, being Asian.
Now, do your groups find the same success with getting members who aren't part of your club or part of your race to come and attend?
For our group, it is a little bit harder to get other members to come. We try to let them know. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, well, I'm not a minority, so I can't go to the club. And I'm like, no, you can come. But it is a little bit, at least for our organization, it has been a little bit harder to reach out to people, even just outside of African, like Latinos can come, Black Americans can come, but it has been a little bit harder. And I think just trying to communicate, and definitely I think word of mouth usually works the best for us, but just trying to tell other people about the events and just being consistent with it helps a little bit. But it definitely has been harder to get other people outside to come to our organization.
Now, one thing that you were mentioning were when students make the claim that I'm not of this race, I'm not Black, I'm not Latino, I'm not Asian, I'm not Caribbean, whatever the race may be, I can't come to this. How many times have you heard that?
A lot.
More, yeah.
So
many.
I just want to make sure that it's around the board.
Yeah.
Now, when you hear that as a leader of these clubs, how do you feel?
I feel a little bit let down just because I know that our mission statement says that, yes, it is for Latin American and Spanish students, but our mission is to address the culture, and we are an association, or we are a cultural alliance, or we're a union. We're not exclusive, we're inclusive.
And is that something that you find that a lot of people think it's not an inclusive club, that it's restricted?
Yes.
And why do you think students tend to think that? I mean, in classrooms, we're all together.
Yeah.
Right.
On the field, if you're in a sports, you're all together. So
I don't know, maybe it's just the names, but I mean, there's nothing we can do about the names because that's who we are,
Right.
So it's difficult when you try to think of ways to change it because I feel like maybe they're discouraged when they see like the general bodies. Yes, the majority of the general body is going to be that, that specific group, but I don't think that should take away from like, the aspect or like, the benefits of being in the organization.
I think that people may feel that they are scared that they're going to feel uncomfortable if
But that's part of being in college,
Yeah.
which
Right.
is what's funny. You go into uncomfortable situations every day.
Yeah.
I feel like they think they're going to feel uncomfortable. They're saying, well, I'm going to be the minority at this particular meeting time. If I go to the Association of Latin American Students and I don't identify as Latin American or Spanish, I'm going to be in the minority, and I don't know how that's going to make me feel. I think that might be the question or overlying theme running through a lot of people's minds.
And it's kind of ironic because for most of the students, if they are of the races for your clubs or even a minority race, that's what they deal with in the classroom every day. Do you want to touch upon is kind of the conflicts that do occur. There you represented the students of your association and making sure that your event took place. So in other situations, how do you deal with issues of your members and the minorities that you represent? And what type of issues do you see are facing campuses that you deal with that other organizations would not deal with?
I think sometimes some people like of our races maybe feel kind of like, I don't know, maybe ashamed or something, or like they don't want to embrace who they are, like especially at a predominantly white institution, they kind of want to blend in. So dealing with that is just trying to, like we've said before, like continuing to spread the culture and spread the awareness and saying, you know, we're all the same, even though we look different. You know, it doesn't matter. We're all students here. We all have the same goals, you know, the same values, and that's what's more important than, you know, like, you know, physical or, you know, like appearances or something like that.
I would say ALAS has definitely dealt with the same type of issue. A lot of students that we see on campus who we know identify as Latin American or Spanish, or who are interested in the culture, who take Spanish classes, or who go to Latin Fest, or who go to the Night of the Arts during our Heritage Month, but don't feel comfortable coming to our general body meetings. And I tell people all the time, especially within Alana services, I feel like the students who identify as being under Alana will go to other events. I feel comfortable going to ACA. I feel comfortable going to ASU. I feel comfortable going to the other clubs, but it's because I feel comfortable being upstairs in Alana, so being up in the CMC at Alana services. And I feel as though outside students who do identify as just being in a predominantly white institution, who might be of Asian descent or be of African descent or be of Latin descent, sometimes still don't feel comfortable coming to our meetings, and we just kind of address it in the same way that we would address someone who doesn't identify as our heritage. We just say, you know, we are a club who welcomes all people. We do things to promote our culture, but to also, you know, feel like a family and to have somewhere that you can come, just distress for the week, vent about your problems, learn about different things, meet new people, and have a good time.
So when you find that students feel confused, what then do you do? Is it just, here's our club and here's what we have to offer, or what ways do you deal with that situation?
I try to explain to them what makes our group, our organization, different from the other groups. I don't discourage them. I'm like, you should definitely go to all the other ones. They might have different information, but I try to say, well, ours is under a national organization, and what we want to do is we want to work with the community. We want to have medical students come and talk and have more of like a mentor-mentee kind of feeling. Try to have maybe different health professionals come and speak. So we just try to list them and tell them and our mission statement. So that kind of helps them see, okay, well, this is the difference. So maybe I would like to go to this one, or maybe if I have time, I'll go to that one. And I think that kind of helps them, because they do come up to me and they're like, well, what is the difference between MAPS and what is the difference between pre-health? And I think once we say that, then they understand, and it makes it easier for them to feel comfortable if they want to come.
Okay.
I think also, once again, going back to the various events, the larger events that we may have during our Heritage Month or throughout the school year, because that kind of makes it a little bit more inclusive, because people are a little bit more willing to go to something like Latin Fest or something like a Night of the Arts, where they can kind of feel out for themselves what the organization is, and then when they go and they see what our organization is about, then they're more willing to actually go to a general body meeting that might be a smaller crowd.
We usually touch upon familiarity. For example, when we had Latin Fest, we made sure our poster said Chipotle or Qdoba, things that our students here automatically recognize, which does identify with our culture, but then we also have more authentic things, like El Salvador restaurant. We have, you know, real things from our culture, but they feel more comfortable coming because they see something that they know.
Right. Okay. Now, one thing I do want to touch on, because we kept talking about comfort, we kept talking about family, I want to just read this quote, and although it specifies Black students, I know that this is something that probably can touch all of your clubs, so I'm just going to read it. In the Journal of Student Affairs and Practices, studies of Black students studying on predominantly white campuses report that their marginal participation within traditional campus organizations is attributed to a campus climate described as cool or unwelcoming. Now, hearing this quotation, we've talked about a lot of the times that your students come to your clubs because they might not find a place, or you're a family, so you're welcoming, you're bringing them in, you're creating a home here on campus for them. So do you find that some students, be they Black, or whatever the race may be, that they can describe the campus as cool and unwelcoming, and then come to your clubs for that comfort, that sense of home.
Yeah, definitely do. And I hope that, like, you know, we become more than that too. Like, you can eventually feel comfortable even outside of ACA, you know, which I think is very important to emphasize too during your general body meetings. But I definitely think that people, especially freshmen coming in, it's their first year, you know, it can be hard to like make new friends or to acclimate, and they feel comfort in our organization, and hopefully outside of it too eventually.
I definitely agree with Jen. I feel like a lot of students come to our events to our meetings to feel welcome, but then we also encourage them to go to things like Relay for Life or other larger campus-wide events. Not that our events aren't campus-wide, but events that are more well-attended. Because they're comfortable with us, I feel like if we promote those other events, they may say, okay, well, someone from ALAS or someone from ACA is going to be there. Let me find a friend from one of my clubs that I feel welcome at and go to something that might be a little bit out of my comfort zone.
And I feel like that helps, then since they went there, that helps other students to know about our clubs. Once you collaborate, that spreads the word more.
Right. Now, another aspect to the issue is also, how do you get your general body members, once they're comfortable with your club, like you said, to go out and spread to other clubs? At the end of the day, we are at a predominantly white campus. There are other networks, there are other clubs that are available to you that may be of interest, that actually may be able to help you. So what do you actually do? Because a lot of people credit minority clubs with ostracizing minorities even further and not promoting other clubs. So when people make those claims, how can you say as leaders that you promote Relay for Life or you promote CCSJ here on campus?
I've had a recent example. One of our general body members, we're kind of starting to recruit for our executive board next year, and she's a great general body member. She shows up to everything, works at tables in Boulder. And I asked her, I said, you know, are you looking to be an executive board member of the Association of Latin American and Spanish Students next year? And she said, I would love to, but I'm applying to be an evergreen, so I can't do both. And as much as I would love for her to be in the executive board of ALAS, I felt like it was my duty as a leader to encourage her to do what she ultimately wanted to do. Of course, she'll still be a general body member. She'll still be an active part of ALAS. It's not like that will take away from her time with us, but that's a leadership position that she wanted. And I felt as being a leader, I need to encourage her to branch out and go out to other aspects of our campus.
And at the same time, that's putting more of your general body members throughout the whole campus and allowing your face and your mission, because no matter what we do here on campus, it's intertwined with every other club.
Yeah.
Right.
Somehow you worked for WLY and you're now sponsoring something with Relay for Life and making that connection, which is something that you also would, of course, want to teach your general body members. So how about for ACA or ASU? What do you guys do?
It's pretty much the same thing. Our vice president, Victoria Chan, she's an RA. Some of our general body members are RAs too, so that's another way of being a leader in a different way as well. So she has information on that and on ACA, so she can spread the information on ACA to her residents, and then to our general body members, she can spread information about how they can become an RA as well if they want. So just different things like that, like evergreens, other leadership organizations on campus. And even if people don't want to be a leader, you know, there are people who are members of multiple organizations, and just talking amongst each other about those various organizations gets the word out there and encourages people to, you know, get outside of their comfort zone and to go be a part of the community in other ways besides Alana clubs.
Yeah, I think that's certainly the case with a lot of Alana clubs. For instance, you're in jazz club.
Yes.
Or the jazz band, rather.
Jazz
Right.
ensemble.
And I know that the BSA looked to you to say, hey, we need music for our Night of the Arts on such and such date. Would you be able to speak with the director? And I think that's a great thing to encourage your members, not necessarily to say, oh, I have this person to go to, but so that your campus is intertwined, that you actually are bringing your message or whatever it is to other forums and other clubs. So I definitely would agree that it's something that needs to be done. It's something that's not always done, though, for sure. Lastly, I want to talk about why the clubs are instilled and the reasons that students do turn to them. In the quote here, I'm just going to read it. It says, in the book, Student Engagement in Higher Education, research shows that predominantly white institutions typically overlook the cultural interests and needs of racial ethnic minority students, especially when it comes to campus activities. Now, when you think of the big campus events here, do you feel that minority students are represented, such as, I don't know, maybe Relay for Life, Loyola Palooza, or I don't know, anything you could name that's great or huge to our campus? Do you feel like the interest of your general body members or your associations or just minority students is taken into account?
I personally don't think so. I think that the bigger events, as you were mentioning, Relay for Life, Loyola Palooza, the big events here on campus are looked at as being general. They're trying to appease the general crowd. Who's going to buy the most tickets? Who's going to show up the most? What's the biggest crowd that's going to turn out? Which I understand. I mean, this is a school, but it's also a business, and they're trying to make money, promote their events, and they're going with the general consensus. But I also feel like it can be targeted a little bit more towards minorities.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I feel that events like Loyola Palooza and Relay for Life are targeted towards the Loyola student as a whole and not so much targeted just towards minorities. Pretty much the same thing as you said, minority interests are not so much taken into account specifically when those events are planned.
Mm-hmm. Yes, everything you guys said I pretty much agree with. I just think it's hard to find that ground to have everybody included. If I had the answer, I would love to tell them to help them out. It's just something that has to be worked upon, and I think every campus has that problem. So hopefully,
because you're not going to be able to target
right,
every interest,
exactly.
but at the same time, there is a group that doesn't necessarily always identify with what the majority does. So how do you answer that? That, like you said, I don't have the answer to the question, but it is a problem.
Maybe by reaching out to the leaders and the people who are in charge of those events, and but I definitely approaching them with a specific idea as to how they could, take care of our interests and things like that. I don't have any specific ideas right now, but
I'm sure if all the clubs came together,
yeah.
If you when you think about the concerts, you could easily poll and ask different students and kind of get a mixing for, is it the fall concert, something like that, or even Loyola Palooza. It's difficult, obviously, but it is something that probably should be taken into account. I'm glad that we all in agreement with that one. So I'd like to thank you all for being here and being on the panel and giving a little bit of insight on what you do as leaders, minority leaders on campus, and what your clubs are about. So thank you again for joining us. As always, you just watched an episode of The Minority Part, and we will see you same place, same time.